What are you making?
I'm mixing up a stew to give corporate a different view. Have a taste. Welcome to the Corporate Kitchen. I'm your host, Tiger, and today on the menu is layoffs. After 2 weeks of really good topics, we finally get into something that just isn't so great. So we got to talk about it. This is a one-on-one level topic that we see a lot in companies. It's not good news, but we got to talk about it. So let's just get in the kitchen and get this over with. According to the Merriam-Webster, the definition of layoff as a verb is 1. To mark or measure off. 2. To cease to employ a worker, often temporarily. 3. Of a bookie to place all or part of an accept bet with another bookie to reduce the risk. 4. A. To leave undisturbed. 4B. Avoid, quit. 4C. To refrain from swinging at a pitch. Oh, that's actually funny. I forgot that in baseball, you lay off a pitch. Learning's great. Obviously, we're talking about definition number 2, to cease to employ a worker, often temporarily. The key word here is actually temporarily. And I'm glad it's in the definition because majority of layoffs are a temporary measure when we think about headcount. Apologies in advance. I do have a little bit of a cold, so I may sound a little nasally here. We're going to do the best with the audio editing to fix that, but a little bit of a cold. Going back to layoffs. So it is a temporary measure. When we think about a company, and let's just call it company A, and this company has 100 workers. They do a layoff. They lay off 20% or 20 workers, and now they're down to 80. Well, the goal of every company is to build and thrive. So if they never hired again, they never got more business, they never grew, they wouldn't be doing their job to make the business successful. The goal isn't to lay off the 20% and then never see the business grow and hire people again. No, we're in a situation now that requires a reduction in force to support our financial stability. We decided that 20% is the number. We lay off 20%. Within 2 years, people are usually hiring. The same companies usually, company A would be hiring again because they found a way to grow the company, they fixed the issues that they had, and now they're in a position of growth. Also, logically, when you think about it too, everyone feels this way. You start off with 100 people, you lay off 20%, so now you're down to 80, but you still have 100 people worth of work. The work didn't go away. Just because those people left doesn't mean the work went away. So now you have 80 doing the work of 100. That is another layer of motivation to ensure that as a CEO, as a business leader, you're consciously trying to grow the business because you want to hire people to support the team that tends to get overworked after a layoff. That's why another reason why they're temporary. And that's the first takeaway, right? Most layoffs, if not all, are temporary. And bigger corporate companies, it's super annoying because the perception is a layoff is there to meet a very short term metric number. And when I say short term, we're talking like the business quarter. Hey, we didn't hit a number for quarter 1. Now in business quarter 2, we'll have a layoff to make sure we hit the number. Then the running joke is by quarter 3 or quarter 4, they're either calling those people back to bring them in as contractors or rehiring them. It's kind of like, why would you do it in the first place if you knew that you would need those people back? We used the example for company A talking about 100 people. Think about this on a larger scale. Let's do company B at 100,000 people. You do the same 20% layoff, that's 20,000 people. Now you drop the company down to 80,000. 80,000 people doing the work of 100,000 people. That sounds a lot scarier. The ratio is about the same, but it sounds a lot scarier, but it also is the magnitude of recovery is much higher because now we're not talking about 20 people we need to hire at company A to get back to 100 total. We're talking 20,000 people at company B that you would have to hire to get back to 100,000. That's a lot of people. During that time, you're going to have, and we do have to separate the two, right? You're going to have people that leave naturally, which we call attrition. You have to separate the two. Layoffs is one thing, attrition is another. Attrition is going to be the natural development of people outside of the company. And it's natural. I mean, people change companies all the time to make more money, to get different experience. Every big corporation has a anticipated level of attrition. Some of them will make targets to try to make sure that it doesn't get out of control. Obviously, you don't want to get priced out by your competitor. If you're offering wages at a certain threshold and your biggest competitor is offering the same wages at 1.5 times your wage, they're obviously are going to steal all your people because they know how to do the job and they're going to get paid more. That's the nature of the business. So there is a balancing act to ensuring that you retain your employee base and allow some of them to continue their development outside, but not too many to the point that it's detrimental to your existing company and that you're clearly inferior to your competition. So companies tend to pay attention to each other's data all the time because they don't want to be forced to have a layoff due to their attrition being way out of control, right? Attrition, one thing, natural. Layoff, which is what we're focusing on here, temporary measure. Temporary. And again, a lot of times they end up hiring those people back. And it makes it very frustrating. If you are new into your company, less than, let's say, 5 years of total experience, find a tenured person. Find someone that's been at the company for more than 20 years. They will tell you a story or stories, it's all unfortunate, about layoffs, how they feel when the layoffs were announced, how they got through it. And some of them that you talk to may have been a person that was laid off and came back and was called back, and they can give you that perspective too. I've been through like, 3 or 4 layoff phases in my corporate career so far that I've noticed. Thankfully, I've never actually been laid off, but I've seen it, and it is definitely experience. It also highlights how important it is for you to address your personal health and take care of yourself to put yourself in a thriving state, because the companies just look at you as an employee number. Yes, they do all the engagement activity, they do and say all this stuff. They make you feel valued. They maintain a culture that is very, very supportive of high retention. And then they turn around and use short-term rationale to drive a layoff, a temporary cease of employment. It's crazy, right? Super crazy. If we have to relate this to any food item, though, if we have to relate it, it has to be Chitterlings, also known as chitlins. If you don't know what those are, Google it. Google it when you're like sitting down. Chitterlings. Chitterlings. You can look it up. It's nasty. Let's just go there. It's Don't tell me it's a delicacy in some cultures. No. It's nasty. The reason why layoffs are like chitterlings, because number one, nasty and bad. There's nothing good about layoffs. Like, they are absolutely the worst, the highest level of negativity that you can get, especially when it comes to morale in a company. Chitterlings are the worst type of food that you could ever bring to a special occasion. A lot of people eat them during the holidays, so Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. They smell so bad that they can ruin the rest of the food because they just don't smell good. Some people put hot sauce on them. Just don't bring them around the table. If someone's like, "Oh, I'm bringing chitterlings," you're gonna know. You're gonna know, and that puts us into our second takeaway. It, Layoffs are very predictable. Just like if someone's having chitterlings, you will know. No one, and under no circumstances, do you let anyone make or bring chitterlings into your house without your knowledge. You will know. Those smell so bad, you have to be prepared for them to enter your household. And they could ruin your taste buds to just the smell could ruin your taste buds to not wanting to eat anything else. And if you taste it, that now you might not be eating anything for the rest of the week. But when it comes to chitterlings, people know if someone's making chitterlings. They are prepared for that. They have to be cooked a certain way that just you know. You know. Just like with layoffs. Layoffs are predictable. You know when a layoff is coming. You don't walk into the office one day and find out people's badges don't work and the company's having a large layoff and didn't say anything. It's kind of predictable. The access to the information that will identify and be a leading indicator of whether or not there's going to be a layoff is the difference. If you're in a public company, the access is public. If you're in a private company, it may be harder to access, but it's predictable. And what's this information that we're talking about that we need to access? It's financials most of the time. 9 times out of 10, it's financial data. It is understanding how your revenue went, your operating profit is, your variable costs, your SG&A, just understanding the profit and loss, the balance sheet, your income statement. It's all that information there, especially on a quarter by quarter basis, will show you the trajectory of the company. Public companies have to hit their goals. If the trajectory is not lining up with the target, something has to change. Obviously, they don't want to make a permanent change to meet a short-term goal. If we're not trending in the right direction after business quarters 1 and 2, and we have commitments for the whole year to meet certain goals, you may see a rumor of layoffs to try to address that. Costs are out of control. How do we address costs? Well, I know you're thinking that there could be a lot of things that are done on the operations floor or in your computer network or with many other things that make a lot of sense. So let me validate you in saying, yes, you are absolutely right. The company could probably save a lot of money if it attacked the high dollar waste that you identified. The two issues with that is, one, it usually costs money to make money, so that would require an investment. And then two, does the time it takes to realize the savings match the period that they need to achieve the savings in? So if your plan says, hey, if you invest in this area, make it better, over the next 3 years, you could save millions of dollars. I was like, well, okay, that's nice. And I think that's good. But we need to address business quarter 4 and we're in business quarter 3. Layoffs. We'll just have layoffs, cut the bottom line, cut the cost line, and that will improve our EBIT
And because if you can't sell more, then the decision is made to cut the costs. And these are hard decisions. I know that people feel, though, sometimes that it's a cop out. It's easy for executives to make this decision because they don't care about the people below. And there's probably some truth to that. It doesn't make the decision any easier. Some executives do have hearts, but when you actually number crunch, it's actually a difficult conversation to have. Let's break this down, right? I mean, even with Chitterlings too. If someone's gonna make Chitterlings, that's like you got to be committed. That is not a simple, straightforward thing to make. You gotta sit down and have that conversation with yourself or the person who's making it, and really know what you're doing there, because that can be destroyed really easily. When you're having layoffs, let's break this down. Company A. Let's go back to company A. 100 people. Attrition over the year is expected to be at 5%. So you expect to end the year naturally between 95 and 100 people, right? If some people leave, you may hire them back. So let's say 3 people leave, but then you hire 3 people, right? Between that cycle, anywhere from 95 to 100 people. You're expecting about 5% attrition. You lose a big contract. Now, instead of having work for 100 people, you have work for 80 people. Naturally, through attrition, if you don't hire anyone back, you would be at 95. So now you got a gap of 95 to current people left, projected current people left, to a need of 80. What do you do? So if you immediately, did the math and said, okay, 95 minus 80 is 15, just lay off 15 people. Okay, let's break this down. When there is a signal of layoffs, what do most people do? Do people sit there comfortably and say, I have a job? Or do people tend to kick in that self-preservation and look for other jobs? So while you say, let's lay off 15, you might get 20, 25 to leave because you had a list of 15 and an additional, 5, 10% of people said, okay, I can't wait around to see if I'm going to be on the list or not. I need to skedaddle while it's still high. I need to take another opportunity or find another opportunity before I'm told. So you may intend to lay off 15 people, but really 18 to 20 left. So now instead of being at 80 people, you're now closer to 75 with the work of 80. So what do? Hire back in. and that's where layoffs become temporary. You just did a layoff, some people left, and it's like, wow, I literally just did a layoff, and now I need to hire because I lost more people than I intended. Let's go back. Let's say we didn't do 15. We're at that 95 number again. Start off with 100. We're expecting 5% attrition, so about 5 people will leave. So we're projecting to be at 95 people. 95 minus 80 is 15. We said 15 in the first example. Lost the big contract, right? So now we got to lay off. We only have 80 people worth of work. We're anticipating that some people will kick in their self-preservation and leave. So what if we did 10? Let's not do 15. Let's do 10. They'll get us to 85. And then we don't hire back and see if it'll trickle down to 80. And if it doesn't, Now you're paying for 85 people when you only have work for 80, which puts yourself at risk because you already lost a big contract, which means your costs are going to go up, or your costs are going to be higher than what you're projecting because you have more heads than what you need. If people naturally leave and get you down to 80, that's the sweet spot. That's the risk you play. So do you undercut and not lay off enough people to hit your target and hope that some people leave? Or do you lay off exactly what you need and possibly risk that more people leave and you have to hire back? It's a balancing game. It is a very hard balancing game. And that's what makes it so temporary. You want people to thrive. You want people to do well at their job. You also want to put them in a situation to succeed. And they can't do that if the odds are not in their favor. If we have work for 80 people and I have less than 80 people, the odds are not in your favor. If I have work for 100 people and we only have 80 people, the odds are not in your favor. And if the odds are not in your favor, that causes disruption. And that disruption is going to be seen in either cost increase, because now you're going to have to work harder and that's going to increase my costs, or people are going to get disgruntled and leave the company. And now I have to spend more money in trying to hire people back or hire talent out there. It is a balancing act. And to be in the room deciding this, it's not an easy decision to make just from a managerial standpoint. Then you mix in the emotional intelligence portion of it too, and have to get into the whole discussion of who do we put on the list. It's not a good time. It's why it's so negative. It's like Chitterlings. Cannot say there's nothing positive I can say about Chitterlings, just like there's nothing positive I can say about layoffs. It's not great whatsoever. And again, they're predictable. If you are working at a publicly traded company, there is no reason that you should not. Oh, that's a double negative. Let's try this again. If you're working at a publicly traded company, you should 1000% be attending your company's earnings call, either live or catching the replay. Those quarterly earnings calls will provide you a lot of insight into how the company is doing from an enterprise level. You could be, and we talked about this in mentorship and a couple other episodes earlier, about understanding the framework of the company, the organizational hierarchy, branching out to different areas, whether it's different divisions or different businesses within the companies, different subsidiaries, whatever. You got to understand the company at large and how you play a role in it. A great way to assist you in that is the earnings call, and it will show you how things are going on an enterprise level. From there, you can map how your area supports the greater enterprise. It also keys you in to the whole company's performance. So you could be in your pocket, your division, your subsidiary. You guys are doing great, making a whole bunch of money. You get on the earnings call and find out you beat your goals by more than 10%. But the other side missed their goals by 50%. Your 10% increase does not outweigh their 50% loss. So the company in totality is at a loss. Despite how great your division, area, whatever's doing, in totality, when you add everyone up, company's at a loss. And it's a significant loss. At that point in time, you should be able to make the conclusion of whether or not your company is going to have a layoff. You'll get information from there and it will really cue you in. What's really nice too is that towards the end of most of these calls, there is a Q&A session and it'll give you even more information, more data to collect to truly make a good judgment call on the direction of your company and whether or not it's going to result or the situation will result in layoffs. You can find that out on your own. That's called self preservation and making sure that you're taking care of you. If you're going to be in a thriving state, you got to maximize your personal health. And part of that is the knowledge bank. You got to know what's going on. You got to protect yourself from layoffs. And you see this a lot of time with people that actually want layoffs. There are people that are close to retirement, and we'll talk more about this at the table. They get excited. They're like, "Ooh, layoffs, layoffs, layoffs are coming. Da 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 da. Can't wait for it." And the reason for that is, as we get into takeaway number 3, unpopular opinion, they are necessary. Layoffs are necessary sometimes. Couple reasons why. But before we get into those, I do want to break down the two types of layoffs. There's voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary is when you hear on the television that, or Twitter, Facebook, whatever, wherever you get your news from, that people were offered packages to leave. Voluntary. I'm not assigning names. I'm not giving a list of names. We're not walking people out. We're saying, we will give you this to leave. And then there's involuntary, the more scary of the two, that we're just going to start walking people out. Those are the super scary ones. And on both sides of the fence, both being the employee that is being walked out and then having to be, most of the time, a blindsided manager of getting the list and seeing that one of your people is on it and having to have that awkward conversation, whether in person or nowadays with all the remote work via Skype, Teams, Zoom, whatever virtual communications tool that you use. So those are the two main types. And the reason I say they're necessary is for a couple reasons. Number one, there used to be, before, this is well before COVID, but there used to be a strong ranking system at companies, and they had it to maintain their competitive advantage. And there were some companies that would say, every year we cut the bottom 3 to 10% of performers. And it didn't mean you were a bad performer. You could have performed well, but compared to your peers, you weren't top. You were at the bottom. Some companies laid off every year, 3 to 10%, and then brought in new talent. And that was the way they maintained their competitive advantage in making sure they got the best of the best. Because if you weren't at the best, you got cut. That worked out for a lot of companies. It got difficult to maintain after the pandemic, so you don't see it as much anymore, or at least the motivation directly tied to that as much anymore. But before, that was very common. Tech companies, big companies, every year it's just like, all right, let's trim the fat. And they would take, again, you could have been very tasty fat. You could have been well cooked, the side of the filet mignon or the ribeye that was seared on for 30 seconds and you got a nice color to you and you taste really good with the steak. Great performer, but still got cut because you weren't the medium rare piece in the middle that was cooked to perfection that without the fat tasted delicious. Is what it is. The people that entered those fields understand that's what they're walking into. If you don't know if your company's like that, you need to talk to someone and make sure that you do understand whether or not you're entering or are in a company that operates that way. The second reason that layoffs are necessary is that it provides the confirmation that signals to all your employees that business isn't great. When companies go into layoffs, it's usually their last resort because layoffs do cost money. Layoffs are not free. They do cost money. Companies pay out severance packages. It's not a free thing. And remember, they're temporary. So when you go back to hiring someone, Now you have to pay extra money to hire. And it's usually more expensive to lay someone off and rehire, train them, and get the new person up to speed than it would have been to just keep that person. So if we're at the point where we're having layoffs, it's a confirmation signal that things are not great. You see this happen at many companies when they live contract to contract. So you don't win a contract that you were anticipating, business doesn't grow. That's a signal, right? You will see this in a merger or acquisition. If you are merged with another company and they say, all right, we're taking over now and we're going to do some consolidation. That's a sign that things aren't great, that they're going to consolidate some stuff. You will see it sometimes in the divestiture and the opposite, where you are a company being sold off to either another company or you're going to be independent. Not signs of good times necessarily. The layoff announcement is confirmation that things aren't great. The irony of it is the layoffs are temporary. Therefore, you know that they're going to be in a period where they need to hire again. However, and this is where the irony kicks in, you don't know when that is. And that's why a lot of people have trouble with layoffs is yes, they're temporary. Yes, I know they're going to rehire, but when? When? You can't be playing with your life and your money. You absolutely do not play with your money. So to be in a position, a very precarious position of not knowing, number one, we're having involuntary layoffs. Am I on the list? And then two, if I am on the list, when would they start calling us back? Some people will sit and play the waiting game and wait that out. Other people are like, I'm not waiting to see what happens. They could be in the top 10 of performers in that company, and they will still say, based off of their emotional intelligence and how they feel, they're not waiting to figure out what happens. They're going to skedaddle and make sure that they take care of themselves because at the end of the day, the company has to do what it needs to do to take care of the company. You, as an employee, have to do what you need to do to take care of yourself. There are many other variables and layers that go into the decision of who's on the list to have layoffs. We obviously didn't cover them all here. We did a very simplistic, single tunnel view of addressing a layoff. Many more factors that go into it. Many more. So it's definitely understandable when people don't know and feel as though they don't know what's going to happen, despite being told by their manager. And you can be told by your manager too. I will never lay you off. You are one of my top performers. I absolutely will never lay you off. Got it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it will change how you feel about the company, the direction the company is going in, and your job security. At the end of the day, it's your money, your life. You have to take care of you. So don't feel as though when a layoff is being announced, that you know everything, even if you predicted it. Oh, I predicted it. Here comes the layoff. Oh, I know I'm not going to be laid off. It's a necessary thing sometimes, but part of it being necessary is that it's showing you that things are not great, and it's a signal that changes need to happen in order to meet some goals. You could be one of those changes. You never know. So just be careful when you are dealing with those situations. And dear God, do not eat chitterlings. So, minute left. We're going to wrap this up. 3 takeaways on layoffs. Number one, temporary. They are temporary things. It's to meet short term goals most of the time. It gets frustrating depending on who you talk to. If you're going to reach out to someone tenured, just be careful because it may be a sore topic for them. It does get frustrating sometimes, especially when they hire those people back as contractors. 2, they are predictable. If you're paying attention, they are predictable. That's just the bottom line. If you are surprised by a layoff, you need to get your head out the ground because 100% of them are predictable. It the access and information may be a little bit harder to get if you're in a private company, but They are predictable. They didn't win the contract. They are merging with another. They're being bought out by a private equity firm. There is a leading indicator that identifies that a layoff is coming. And then third, unpopular opinion, they are necessary. They are necessary to before maintain a competitive advantage or to signal that the business isn't great. People are so nervous when it comes to layoffs because again, it's so unknown. There's so many unknowns and just getting companies to announce that a layoff is happening provides relief to people because it's like it's been in the grapevine and in the gossip corner for weeks and you're publishing it this month in May, and we've known about it since January. So thanks for finally telling us. Now we can move on to the next step and figure out what to do on in our lives, right? So make sure you stay educated, you understand how the company is doing, and just be prepared for this. And again, don't eat chitterlings. Layoffs are like chitterlings. They are just disgusting.
And with that, we'll turn off this stove, take off the thinking apron, and let's just say the dishes will get done later. This topic wasn't a big mess, but if we learned something today, then we know there's a little cleaning up to do. I do want to talk this topic more, maybe trade stories about this soon, like this Thursday soon. I hope to see you there. Thanks for being in the corporate kitchen today. I'm your host, Tiger. Until next time.